Hello, welcome to my presentation about my thesis report. So the thesis I chose was a thesis done by Merdad Rezaie, a former SSC student who graduated last year. And the thesis he defended is called An Analysis of English Textbooks in Afghanistan from the Perspective of Global Englishes. And his thesis is divided into the main sections of introduction and a literature review where he goes through the history of like global Englishes and how it came about and how it relates to textbooks in Afghanistan and how he lays the foundation of his thesis basically. And then he the third section he moves on to the methods and how he basically went about in his research and the interviews and how he analyzed also the textbooks that he chose from English books in Afghanistan, which were done by the Afghanistan Ministry of Education. And then the first section is the results, which he basically explains the results and everything that he has from the methods and also from the interviews and the analysis. And then from the results, it's very straightforward. He goes to the conclusion, the fifth section, where he then basically summarized everything he concluded. He read all the results. So the research questions that Merdad has in his thesis are first, to what extent do school English language textbooks published by the Afghan Ministry of Education fit into the paradigm of global Englishes? The second question is, what is the Afghanistan school English teachers' perspective on these textbooks in relation to the category of global Englishes? And the third and final question is, to what extent do Afghan school English teachers think exercises designed from a global Englishes perspective, how it could be effective for their classes in Afghanistan? So a theoretical framework that the researcher referred to was one developed by Sirbain Rose, who, similarly to this thesis researcher, similar to Merdad, they evaluated English textbooks in Germany. So a few seminal articles used in the literature review. One of them was Matsuda's representation of users and uses of English in beginning Japanese FL textbooks. And very important, I would say the main one was by Sirbain Rose, which is an evaluation of the global orientation of English textbooks in Germany. And the researcher, Merdad, he referred to Rose's and Sirbain's research as well as Galloway articles and researches in general about this topic quite often in the literature review and in the research, in the thesis. Okay, so what type of research was done by Merdad? It was a qualitative research, since it cannot be replicated in the terms of like numbers. He interprets the data he has. There is no controlled experiment. He conducts interviews with teachers, English teachers in Afghanistan, who are not like doing controlled exercises or anything, but he's just talking to them and then he interprets everything he says. And so it's a qualitative research, no numbers but words. And so what did the author need to consider to be sure that the research was ethical? This was very interesting to see. So he needed an informed consent form from the professors, the teachers who he was interviewing. So he needed their permission and like something formal to know that he's not doing anything that could be illegal. And so he needed to ensure the teachers he was interviewing about confidentiality and the safety of all the information he would be getting during the interviews. Then, of course, obviously, to not reveal any names of people involved in the research, which is why he had the teachers being called Teacher 1, Teacher 2, Teacher 3, and Teacher 4. And also, new information, which will be certainly important for the future, is the fact that the recordings and the notes he took needed to be secured following a security protocol according to IRB guidelines. So what methods did he use or were used to collect the data? So he had two main methods. The first one was analyzing English textbooks developed by the Afghan Ministry of Education, which are used in all public schools in Afghanistan and in some private English schools as well. And beyond that, he also had interviews, semi-structured interviews with 4 Afghan English teachers. He had 2 rounds, one in February of 2024 and one in March of 2024. It was during the period of the research of Merdad. Yeah, and in the second round there were only 3 teachers because one of the teachers could not participate due to scheduling and being very busy and not being able to participate, basically. Yeah. So moving on to the next slide, we have the question, how was the data analyzed? So basically what Merdad did, he took the textbooks and the interviews and all this data and he distinguished it in terms of like global English paradigm and AFL paradigm, AFL meaning English as a foreign language. So basically putting the data into like blocks of like, is it more into global English or English as a foreign language? So does this unit in this textbook have exercises that showcase one or the other? So he contrasted them, the data, and he did it similarly with both textbooks and the interviews, like the data he had from the interviews. So he recorded everything, he had everything written in the end, right, in notes, and then he could just put into categories and then come to conclusions. So what were the conclusions? So according to Merdad, so according to the interviews with the Afghan English teachers, as well as the analysis of the Afghan English textbooks, current school English textbooks, they do not fit into the paradigm of global English, but they rather fit into English as a foreign language paradigm. And regarding the third question, which is whether the teachers would like to have more global English exercises, they said yes, because it would motivate Afghan students to learn English, not just for school, but also as a mean to communicate with people beyond just native speakers. So they can realize they can speak to many other peoples and having English then as like a lingua franca, right? And also learn from other people's culture and how they can relate that to their culture as well. So in his research, he had 34 sources, and the journals that were most referred to are Kachru, which is called Teaching World Englishes, which is like a research done in the 90s, and then Rose and Galloway, which is from 2015, called Introducing Global Englishes, basically where he has those 4 channels of English and how like English evolved to be a global language. And then also Rose and others in the book, or I think research called Global Englishes and Language Teaching, a review of pedagogical research. That's it. Thank you guys very much, and I hope you understood what I was able to tell here. Bye.